So let's talk about MHC. Get rid of that. Let's talk about MHC. So what is MHC? It stands for Major Histocompatibility Complex. And Major Histocompatibility Complex is going to be related on all cells or just on antigen presenting cells based on what subtype it is. So based on our MHC, we've got MHC1 and you've got MHC2. This video is going to go over the very basics about each one, just so you get an idea of how it all fits together. So you've got MHC Class 1 and MHC Class 2. MHC Class 1 is going to be found on all cells. Now there's always an exception, minus red blood cells, so it's not going to be found on red blood cells. However, we're going to have Major Histocompatibility Complex Type 1 on all cells for the most part. And what it's going to do is it's going to present to CD8 positive cells. So you may have heard MHC1 always binds to CD8 positive. Well, what does this mean? Well, it means that we're going to have a cell. So let's take a thyroid cell, for example. I like using the thyroid cells as always my example. So we've got a thyroid cell, and it's going to have MHC Class 1. That MHC Class 1 will bind CD8 positive cells. So what does CD8 positive cell mean? CD8 positive cell is going to be a T cell because it's going to be a T cell, but more specifically it's going to be a cytotoxic T lymphocyte. I do have a video regarding cell surface markers. It kind of explains what like the CDs mean. So there's CD3, CD4, CD8. What do they all mean? So that video kind of goes through. It'd be a good review. I'd recommend watching it. However, so you've got the MHC Class 1 and the CD8 positive cell. So it's going to be our cytotoxic T lymphocyte. That'll be our cytotoxic T lymphocyte, CD8 positive. And what it's going to do is this thyroid cell is going to present some antigen on its MHC1, and it's going to stimulate that CD8 positive. If that CD8 positive says, hey, that's normal antigen, nothing will happen. However, if it's a pathologic or like a bad antigen that it presents to that CD8 positive cell, that CD8 positive cytotoxic T lymphocyte will kill that thyroid cell. Okay, so let's see. We've got MHC1. What does MHC1 do? Well, it's going to present antigen. I've already said it's going to present antigen. And what antigen is it going to present? You've got antigen out here, outside or inside the cell. You've got a whole bunch of antigen inside the cell. You've got antigen on its little membrane. You've got antigen outside. You've got antigen all over. Antigen is simply a marker that is unique. It's a unique marker. So the antigen could be a protein, it could be a carbohydrate, it could be anything. It could be a bacterial capsid, for all I care. That antigen is just going to be a unique molecule. So what it's going to do is MHC1 is going to take this inside, the intracellular material. It's going to chop it up into pieces. It's going to chop up some antigen. Maybe it made a protein. It's going to chop that protein up. Maybe it has some ribosomes. It's going to chop that ribosome up. Maybe it made some messenger RNA. It's going to chop whatever up. It's going to stick it on its MHC1 complex out here, and it's going to stick that antigen fragment up there, and that antigen fragment is going to present to the CD8 positive cell. If it gets the green light, it's okay. If the CD8 positive cytotoxic T lymphocyte doesn't like it, then we have the problem. So that's kind of how it all pieces together. Now let's make some room. I've got MHC2. MHC2 is a little different. It's going to be found only on antigen presenting cells. And what these are going to do is we're going to have MHC Class 2. They're going to bind with CD4 positive cells. So I just said CD8 positives were the cytotoxic T lymphocytes. Your CD4 positive cells are going to be your T helper cells. Your T helper cells. So if you've heard this before, the MHC2 always binds CD4 positive cells. Just simply means that your antigen presenting cells, oops, I don't know why it did that. Let's get rid of it. Don't like it. So we've got an antigen presenting cell with a whole bunch of dendritic arms, and those arms are going to grab the antigen that's outside the cell. So there's a whole bunch of antigen out here. These arms are going to grab it. It's going to take that antigen, bring it inside. It's going to chop it up. Then what it's going to do is it's going to have a major histocompatibility complex out here. It's going to stick it out on the MHC2. So the MHC2 is going to be the result of the extracellular stuff. MHC1 is more intracellular stuff, while MHC2 is the extracellular stuff found on antigen-presenting cells, specialized cells that present antigen. And this MHC2 will contain that antigen fragment. Again, our T helper cell will come along. If it likes it, then okay, that's good. If it's a foreign fragment, so from, let's say, a bacteria, if it brought in a bacteria, chopped it up, presented some of that bacteria, your T helper cell will recognize that it's not from the body, and then it'll mediate its effect from there. Whether it's to make antibody, whether it's to activate macrophages, whatever it chooses to do from there. It depends on what subtype. There's subtypes 1 and 2. Not going to go into that right now. So now let's open up another page. Now let's move on to the different subtypes. So you have the two main categories. You have MHC Class 1, and you've got that's spelled wrong. You've got MHC Class 2. So you've got the two different subtypes. Let's get rid of that. So what are we going to deal with? Well, there's different subtypes of each one. We can further subtype. So we've got types, then we've got subtypes. And then we can also have subtypes if we want to go even further. So what we're going to have is we're going to have A, B, C. There's also DR, DQ, and DP. So like I said, we have subtypes and we can have further subtypes. So our subtype would be like MHC, major histocompatibility complex. These are the HLA. HLA. So HLA are just the different types, the different subtypes of the major histocompatibility complex. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to be taking a look at some disorders. And they're going to be autoimmune disorders that we're going to be talking about. We'll be talking about SLE, so lupus. We'll be talking about Graves' disease, Hashimoto's thyroiditis. We'll be talking about ankylosing spondylitis, psoriasis, Reiter syndrome, hemochromatosis. So many diseases. And most of them are going to be associated with autoimmune diseases. So autoimmunity is going to be the big gold word of this part of the lecture. So we have these different types. So we can have HLA type A, HLA-B, HLA-C, DR, DQ, DP. And then further we could have HLA-B7, we can have HLA-B8, we can have B27, and a whole bunch of different things. So let's talk about some of these. So we've got the types A, B, and C. I'll write all of the different disorders or the different subtypes and their disease associations that I'm going to cover today. Trust me, there are infinite. I mean, this could take forever. So I only kind of pieced out some of the major ones. Out of the ABC subtypes, I'm going to choose to talk about A3, B8, and B27, with B27 being the big player out of all of them. Otherwise, we've got DR2, we've got DR subtype or subtype 3, we've got DR4, DR5, and we can also talk about DQ2. Alright, so I wrote all these out just so I can remember to prompt on all of these. So let's start with A3. A3 is going to be in association with hemochromatosis. B8 is going to be in association with Graves' disease, so attacking your thyroid. B27, I'm going to skip and save that for last because that's going to be a really good one. So DR2, if you have a DR2, And then you can even have it further broken down into more like a different type of DR2. So if you have a certain type of DR2, you may have an immune problem, and that'll give you multiple sclerosis. It might give you systemic lupus, erythematosus. Then you've got DR3, that'll give you type 1 diabetes, typically later onset type 1 diabetes, but you may also have DR4, that's in association with type 1 diabetes, more of an earlier acute onset, so earlier in the developmental process. Also rheumatoid arthritis. DR5 is associated with Hashimoto's thyroiditis, so Hashimoto's thyroiditis. DQ2, Dairy Queen 2, one is going to be celiac disease. Alright, so I saved B27 for last because this is going to be the important one. Any test, I've taken multiple tests and they've all tested about the B27, HLA B27. So the HLA B27 kind of component of the major histocompatibility complex. You're going to have 4 major associations. You're going to have psoriasis, which is going to be an autoimmune disorder. You're going to have Reiter's syndrome, also known as reactive arthritis. It's Reiter syndrome. Can't see, can't pee, can't climb a tree is a little fun mnemonic. So you're going to have joint problems, you're going to have eye problems, you're going to have urethral problems. Then also you've got irritable bowel disease, IBD, and then also ankylosing spondylitis. If you remember these 4 things, and they're associated with the B27 HLA group, you're golden. All these other ones, I haven't had a test question throughout my whole education regarding these. However, they are good general knowledge. It's this B27. I would know the pairs, so the PAIR. I didn't write it in order, but you've got the P for psoriasis, A for ankylosing spondylitis, I for IBD, and R for Reiter's syndrome, or the reactive arthritis. Alright, that should be it. If you have any questions, be sure to let me know. Otherwise, I enjoyed giving this lecture, and be sure to like and comment and subscribe. Thank you very much.